Okay, this video is to cover the topics in 5.6. So number one, the first problem, we have negative 8y equals 6.24. The first thing we have to do is to get this y alone. So if we divide out by a negative 8, which will give us a positive 1, and what we do to one side, we must do to the other, then that will enable us to get the y alone on the left side. And then we're going to divide out, just enter it directly into the calculator, 6.24 divided by 8. But remember, the signs are opposite, so you'll end up with a negative answer, and you should end up with negative 0.78. Now, when we work on number 2, it's the same exact thing. So 2.3x equals negative 11.96, and that is a negative. So we want to get this x alone, and we can see that it's attached by multiplication. So if we just divide it out with the same exact number, it will divide out to 1. And then what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So now we have x alone on one side, and then when we divide out, remember opposite signs will give you a negative answer, and you should end up with negative 5.2. Now number 3. We have something like this, negative 4.6x plus 1.2 equals a negative 21.8. Now you can see the goal for this one. They're going to try and get you to realize that first, let's move this one over to this side. So if you subtract it out, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So when we rewrite it, it should look like this. And then we have negative 21.8 and then minus 1.2. Now, remember, you're dealing with a negative and a positive that you're going to be subtracting, so we have to apply that rule where we change this to a plus and make this sign the opposite. Now you can see we're going to be adding two negative numbers, and that should give you a result of negative 23 when you enter that into the calculator. And now we can just apply the same rule we did in 2 and 3. We're just going to make sure it's a negative so we get a positive 1, and that will divide out to 1. And what you do to one side, and don't forget the sign, the negative 4.6. And our final answer here, so two negatives when we're dividing will give us a positive answer, so we end up with x equals 5. And that was number 3. Okay, now number 4, we're going to do some multiplication first. So we have 7 times x minus 2.4 equals 8.4. As you can see inside the parentheses, we can't subtract it because 2.4 does not have the variable x. So we're going to apply the multiplication, the distribution rule. So when we multiply that out, that would be 7x. And then remember, 7 times a minus 2.4 would give us a negative 16.8, so minus. And then we didn't do anything on the right side. Same rule. So with number 4, they just had us take this extra step where we're multiplying it out first. Now we're going to take this and move this over. So we can just add it to this side, and we'll add it to that side. So when we rewrite it, it becomes 7x equals, and then it's 8.4 plus 16.8. When you add that up, putting that into the calculator, you end up with a result of 25.2. And then here, just to get the 7 off the x, since it's multiplication, just divide it out by 7. So that divides out to 1. And what you do to one side, you must do to the other. And when you plug that into the calculator, you end up with a result, of x equals 3.6. All right, so now number 5. Number 5, we have 0.3x plus 0.2 is equal to negative 0.7. Okay, so now when you read these set of instructions, it asks you to multiply both sides by 10 first, and then you're going to solve for x. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So let me just erase this number 5 so I can do that. So this side, we're going to multiply it by 10, and we'll multiply this by 10 also, just based on our set of instructions. And then when I do that inside the parentheses, I can't combine anything, so you're going to be multiplying this and this. So we end up with an answer of 3x plus 2 is equal to -7 when you multiply by 10. Now we can see that we got to take this and we're going to move it over to this side. So when we subtract one, we do to the other. We will rewrite it as that 3x, and then we have -7 minus 2. Now we have an integer rule. We're subtracting a negative and positive, so we're going to change this to a plus, make this the opposite sign. So 3x, and that's a value of -9 when we add those up. Now we're going to get this 3 off the x by dividing out by 3. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. We knew this divides out to 1. And then x equals your final answer equals, and remember, a negative and a positive give you a -3. So again, this one was number 5. Okay, so moving on to number 6. Number 6, they want us to take 4.3x and we're going to add it to 7, and then we're going to subtract 6.3x, and that equals to 5. So what they want you to recognize first in this problem, before you can start shifting things around, hopefully you can recognize that these are like terms, so you can combine those. So before I do that, just to make it easier, I'm just going to go ahead and move the 7 over there. So it would be -7 and -7 here. So let me rewrite it just so you can see why I'm doing this. So if I rewrite it, I'm going to end up with 4.3x minus 6.3x is equal to 5 minus 7. And the reason why I did this, because I want you to see that you're going to have to apply the rule where you change this to the plus, make that a negative. Same thing with this one. So you can see they're throwing in the integer rule to get you used to that. So when we go ahead and take care of this problem, it just by chance you end up with a -2x on this side and a -2 on this side. It's just by chance you end up with a -2 answer on both sides of the equation. Then we can see here we just divide out by a -2 to get ourselves a +1. And then this is a -2 on this side. So our final answer here is x equals, and two negatives make a positive. And remember, any fraction with the same numerator and denominator, it's just the whole number 1. So our answer is a +1 because two negatives make a positive answer. All right, so number 7, we have a -0.09x, and that is equal to -3.6. Same thing we've been doing all along. You're just going to divide out by a negative, 0.09, and what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So we've already done this, so I won't repeat that. So remember, this divides out to 1, and then just x equals 40. Remember, these are two negatives, same sign will give you a positive answer. All right, so number 8. Let's take a look at that one. I think this is same thing. We've already done this, where they're just taking 3.2x minus 29 equals 2.7x plus 7. So we're just going to get the x's on one side and numbers on the other. So when we move this one would be a plus 29, and this would be a minus 2.7x. So on this side we have 3.2x minus 2.7x, and then on the opposite side we have 7 plus 29. Now you just perform the operations, and this becomes a 0.5x, and over on this side you end up with a 36. So now we just divide out by 0.5s, and then we have x equals 72 when you plug that all into the calculator. So that one was number 8. All right, so number 9. Okay, so number 9. So number 9, we have 3 times x plus 2.68. You can see we can't combine anything inside the parenthesis. So if we can't combine, then we know we're going to be stuck with distributing by multiplying out. When we do that, it's 3x plus, and we multiply that out, we end up with 8.04 equals 2x. Now I'm going to go ahead It doesn't matter how you shift around. You can keep the x on the left or right. It doesn't matter. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract on this side, which means I'll subtract this. So just moving and shifting it around, meaning that we have now on this side, we have 3x minus 2x equals, and then on this side would be a negative 8.04. We subtract, we combine these terms, and we end up with a 1x on this side equals negative 8.04, and you can see the answer is just x equals negative 8.04. All right, so number 10. So we have 2 problems to go. So number 10, we have a, let me write that, number 10. So we have a negative 0.2x plus 6.76 equals, we have a negative 0.4x plus 1.96. So again, it's just shifting things around. It doesn't matter if you take it to the left or right. So I'm going to add this one so I can move it over to here. And then this one, I'm going to subtract it out so I can move it over here. So I'm going to rewrite it. So it'd be a negative 0.2x, and then we have a plus 0.4x on this side. On the opposite side, we have a 1.96 minus 6.76. Okay, so now all we have to do is this side, we're going to have to subtract because they're opposite signs and take the sign of the larger number. And when you do that, you end up with a 0.2x equals, and the opposite side, remember, we have to change that to a plus, make this the opposite sign. So now we can subtract, take the sign of the large number, which is a negative 4.8. And then we're just going to divide out by 0.2, and this side of 0.2. Let me just make that the red so you can see a 0.2, and this one's a 0.2. This divides out to 1. And then on this side, we end up with the x equals, and then our final answer is a negative 24. Okay, the final problem. So number 11. Number 11, same thing we've been doing repetitiously. We have 3 times 2x minus 2.3, and that's equal to 8x minus 6.9. So the first step will get you to multiply that out, distribute, so you end up with 6x minus 6.9 equals, and then just rewriting the opposite side, excuse me. Now when we write it out, it's just a matter of shifting things, so we're going to minus that one out, and we'll add this one, opposite signs, 0 out, and I'm going to rewrite that as 6x minus 8x equals, on the other side we have a negative 6.9, and now we're going to have a plus 6.9, which you can already see this side's going to 0 out. So on this side, remember, I'd make this a plus and that a minus, because the number to the right is larger to the number to the left. So we're applying that rule. So we know we're going to end up with a negative 2x, and that's equal to, on this side would be 0. We'll divide out by a negative 2 and a negative 2. So we can see our final answer is x equals 0.